It is believed that individuals in Lake County work out 3 days per week on average. At the 5% significance level, test the claim that the average number of days per week that an individual works out is less than 3. Okay, so first we will state our claim. The claim is going to be the alternative hypothesis because the average number is less than 3, so we can say that mu is less than 3. This is our alternative hypothesis. So the alternative hypothesis will take the opposing viewpoint that mu is greater than or equal to 3. Put some spaces in there to make it a little more readable. Okay, so now we have our null and alternative hypothesis. And below, what they've done is they've taken, we have sample data. Below is sample data for the average number of days that an individual works out. So 30 people were sampled, and these are the amounts of days per week that the individuals worked out. So first we want to find the sample mean, which is x bar. So we will have Excel calculate this for us. We want the average, and we want the average of all the numbers, so we can select the range and hit enter. So the average is 3.26 days per week. Then we can find the sample standard deviation. So equals standard. Now we want the standard deviation for the sample, so dot S. And again, we'll come over and select the range and hit enter. So the sample standard deviation is 2.59. Okay, next, let's calculate the test statistic. So T, this will be a T distribution because remember, we don't know. We just have the belief that the individuals in Lake County worked out 3 days per week on average. We do not know the population standard deviation. Okay, so this will be equal to, remember your parentheses, x bar, which is here, minus mu. Now we're saying mu is 3 days per week. Close your parentheses and then divide that by the sample standard deviation, which we just, open your parentheses. We just calculated that here. And then we'll divide that by the square root. The square root of n, we sampled 30 people. And then close the parentheses. Okay, something went wrong up here. We need x bar minus mu. Okay, now try again. All right, 0.56 will be our test statistic. Now let's find our critical value. Remember, this is going to be a left-tailed test. We get that from the alternative hypothesis. So we're doing a left tail. So the critical value then will be, it's the T inverse. And since we're looking for the probability to the left, and our alpha is the 5% significance level, so the probability there is 0.05. And the degrees of freedom are n minus 1. We have 30 minus 1 is 29. Oops. Comma, 29. And click OK. So negative 1.66 is our critical value. Okay. We can also find the probability. Okay. Now, this is a left-tail test, so we want the probability. This is equal, and we're using the T distribution. The value of x is our test statistic, so we can click the cell that we want, and then comma for the degrees of freedom. There are 29 degrees of freedom, comma, and yes, we want it to be cumulative, and click OK. 7.11, or 7.712. All right, And that's it. That's all the calculations we need to do. And now we can make the conclusions. So if we're basing this on the test statistic, now our test statistic is here. This is greater than our critical value, and our critical value is listed here, which means that our test statistic is outside of the critical region or rejection region. So therefore, we can say, since the test statistic is greater than the critical value, it's not in the region, we do not reject our null hypothesis. Alternatively, we could use the p-value method, and our p-value is 0.712. Now, this value is greater than alpha. Remember, alpha comes from up here. It's the 5% significance level. 5% is 0.05. So, since the p-value is greater than alpha equal to 0.05, we do not reject h sub 0. And finally, we can make our conclusion and interpret this. At the 5% significance level, there is not sufficient evidence to support the claim that the average number of days per week an individual in Lake County works out is less than 3.